Welcome to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy and I am an alcoholic.
And my name is Mick and I'm serving as your secretary with Mossy, and I am an alcoholic. Please join us in a moment's silence to remember that still suffering alcoholics inside and outside this meeting. Kathleen is going to read the preamble.
And Kathleen, would you like to read the preamble for us?
Yes,
and then put it up on the screen for you now. How's that?
My name is Kathleen and I'm an alcoholic. The original version of the current preamble as it was first introduced to AA in June 1947, Grapevine. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any cause. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Kathleen. And a warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous.
The chat is now disabled until the end of the meeting, except for the meeting hosts. If you feel the meeting security is at risk at any time during the meeting, please private message one of the co-hosts so they could sort it out.
And that's it, guys. We have a short introduction in this meeting. At this meeting, it's an old-timers meeting. So we have Suzi that I met in Lanzarote that turns out to be a friend of Lynn's. And she's a bubbly little lady. And just to keep things in order, her sponsor is with her to make sure she tells the truth today. You have 40, 45 minutes or 50 minutes, Suzi. Whatever suits yourself. Take it away, love.
Oh, thank you, Mossy. And my name's Suzi and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Suzi.
And it really is an honour to be here. I'm just taking off my watch so I can see my timing. Mossy, would you just give me like a heads up when I've done kind of half an hour so I can wind it down? Would that be all right?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, please.
If I remember.
Okay. So yeah, firstly, I just want to kind of center myself and just share my gratitude really of what a beautiful day just today is, right here, right now. You know, my sponsor no longer lives in Bournemouth. She lives in West Sussex, and to be able to spend any time with my sponsor is a gift. And she called me on Thursday and said, I'm back in Bournemouth. Any chance I could see you Saturday? And I thought, Mossy's asked me to do this. And then, you know, it's like the stars aligned. And then Margot got here at 12. We went to an AA meeting at 2. We met a lady who came to her first ever meeting today, who was still kind of drunk. Margot and I then went to Engelsbury Head, which is right on the beach near where I live, which is where I first experienced my spiritual awakenings when I was in early days of recovery. And Margot and I sat there for 5-10 minutes in meditative silence. I said the 3rd step prayer, the 7th step prayer, and we sat in silence and just felt the gratitude, the love, and the acceptance of where we are right here, right now. And that's how my day has been today. And I think if that's not a God job, I don't know what is, you know. And my life today is quite simple. I have 2 identical twins that are rolling around the house somewhere. My partner's somewhere. I've got 2 dogs on the floor next to us, 2 mad springers. So if it's a bit chaotic, it is chaotic. But it helps me to be in an AA meeting with you beautiful people to help ground me. And not only is, you know, my sponsor with me, one of the people in this meeting was in the first 3 weeks of my recovery. And it says on my date of my sobriety, 13th of September, 96. And the person who's in this meeting came in 3 weeks after me, and we've been best friends and soul sisters throughout our whole 28 and a half years, almost 29 years of our recoveries. And you think they are the gifts of recovery today, the relationships that we nurture and invest in and nourish and love and honor and experience boundaries with, and all the growth of recovery. I would only have those kind of genuine, authentic relationships. I mean, I wouldn't have them if I didn't have AA. And for that, I'm truly grateful. And you know, the person in this meeting was my birthing partner. So when my boys came over to say hello to my sponsor, you know, Angie's their godmother as well, and helped me give birth. And these are the gifts of recovery, you know, that I experienced only from being in AA. So that's just helped me ground me to have two people, my safe space people in this meeting with me. You know, my backstory is it chaotic? Is it mad? Is it anything special? Probably not. I'm from North London. I can see there's a person here from Ilford. I used to live in Ilford. I now live in Iford in Bournemouth. So we just dropped the L. And I'm from Southgate, come from, you know, a middle-class family. My dad's a pharmacist and my mum's a sex education teacher, which is why I always start my shares saying my life is all about the sex, drugs and rock and roll. And I was all about the dancing and the rock and roll. And I have a hyper energy. And the way I release that kind of dis-ease, disorder is by finding an outlet, you know, and first it was fantasy, second it was stealing, thirdly it was food, you know, greed, gluttony, and then it was cigarettes, the old embassy 10s and JPS and nicking fags from wherever I could. And then came, you know, the alcohol. And alcohol for me was what lit me up. You know, I believe that I suffered from the disease of low self-worth, low self-esteem, insecurity, fear, trauma, generational trauma, and complex issues that were never discussed, never talked about openly and freely. And anything that I did discuss with my mother, who was quite liberal and, as I said, a sex education teacher, was left with, it's just a phase. You'll get over it. Or, yeah, no, that happened to me. And it was dismissed or minimized. And therefore, nothing really was quite significant in my life, or held any value, or had any depth to it, I would probably say. You know, my backstory is that, you know, we talk about what led us to the alcohol. Was it sexual trauma, religious abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, confusion, sexual confusion? It was all of them. But did that lead me to be an alcoholic? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that today. All I know that it was readily available. You know, in the late 80s, my mum and dad had a bar, like the old-fashioned bar that would open up, a corner bar, all wooden, and they had, I mean, it makes me feel ill now, Advocaat and creme de menthe, and Bell's whiskey with the big silver, you know, cup that I would pour that in, I'd gulp it down, and I remember the burn of my throat as it went down, and my cheeks would go bright red. And we celebrate the Sabbath on a Friday night, and we have little thimbles of Palwyn wine, which is the equivalent to port, tastes like port, very rich, very smooth. And all my family would sip it, and I'd be and that was like from the age of about 10 or 11. And it was the only time I ever heard this terminology until I came into the treatment centre in 1996. And my mother said to me, darling, I don't think you should drink that. I think you're having an allergic reaction. And that was the only ever time. And it's not because my mother is pharmaceutically trained in any way, shape or form, but she has allergies, and she would have pinpricks on her arms of pineapple, cucumber, creams, all these kind of things. And she knew from her bodily reactions that there's a physicality that happens to you. And she assumed, rightly, not wrongly, but rightly, that I was having a physical reaction. And, you know, as the saying goes, always listen to mother. She tends to be right. And I didn't. And I continued down that path blissfully for so many years. And, you know, my alcoholic story did take on other substances, did take on other addictions. As I said, it was food, it was exercise, it was a whole different array. But, you know, very much so my drinking career and my alcoholic addiction never left me. I had it whenever I could. And when I drank alcoholically, as in I never drank for the taste or for the atmosphere. I drank to get out of my nut. I drank for the effect only. And I liked being, I liked the sense of that I no longer lived in my thoughts. My thoughts were quite dark and quite oppressive. And I felt often that I saw myself as an ugly duckling that never fitted in anywhere. And that I was always this odd creature that was very isolated in my own thoughts, and drink took that away. It just elevated those dark thoughts. And that's what continued. And for me, my story is institutions. I was institutionalized at the age of, I think, 19 or 20 in Australia. I was sectioned for 28 days in Sydney. And my parents had to come out to Australia and come and get me. I was caught with other substances, and my dad literally said, keep her in the mental hospital. And the only way that I was able to come out of that mental hospital and get on the flight back to London was through psychiatric analysis, that I was straight into North Middlesex Hospital in London and sought psychiatric help. And not once when I returned to London did one of the psychiatrists ever advise me that I'm an alcoholic. You know, they said, look at this picture and what does it remind you of? Or look at this, and, you know, and it was ludicrous. And that's why, you know, the beauty of one alcoholic helping another is without parallel, is for identification purposes. You cannot feel, I believe, the same amount of empathy, compassion and understanding if you have not gone through what we've gone through. So, you know, my journey was that I didn't get it even when I sought that psychiatric help. I went back out there for a lot of years. And, you know, my story was I was about 25 and I was having psychological problems. I wanted to kill myself regularly. I was having paranoid thoughts, dark images. And on the side of my eyes, I would see little spiders and spiders' webs. And obviously I'd taken, you know, psychedelics previously, but these were happening regularly. As I would turn my head, these spiders would follow me, and I'd be like fighting these spiders off from me. And, you know, it was only until I came into AA that I'd then heard similar stories of people suffering with delirium tremors and these illusions of the mind, where the mind started, you know, saturated. You know, there was a lack of oxygen going to my brain. and I had no, I suppose I was dehydrated all the time. I wouldn't eat for days and days and days on end. And I lived on the sugars of the alcohol. And I kind of lost my way. And for me, the only way out, I thought, was suicide. I didn't know that there was another way. So I unsuccessfully tried to commit suicide. I came back and had a paranoid psychosis, delirium scenario that lasted about 2 weeks. And I was rocking, I was shaking, I was frightened, I was deluded with my thoughts. I thought my best friends wanted to kill me. And my father, being a pharmacist back in the day that we used to have the yellow pages, pulled out the yellow pages and opened it up. And on the front of the yellow pages, it had, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous on it. And we made that phone call. And the person who picked up the phone had actually said to me, have you ever thought that maybe alcohol could be the problem? And I kind of like was so taken aback by what he said, because I'd never associated that that was the problem. I thought that I was mad. I thought that I was genuinely deluded, had mental health, severe problems, and was delusional. And when he said that alcohol has this effect on your brain and on your body, and maybe it'd be worth your while coming to a 12-step meeting, and how about meeting me on Friday? And the meeting I went to was, you know, an AA meeting in Southgate at the Priory, in the hub there. And he was the secretary. And thank God to that guy, he was doing H&I and telephone service. And he was there in 95. And I didn't get it straight away. I went and did a geographical. I moved away to the Middle East, where my brother was, thinking I could just escape and get away. And 1 year to the date later, I became a raging alcoholic whilst I was over there. You could get a litre bottle for about £2 of Yardin wine, and I drank alcoholically over there. And I eventually came back a year later, and a situation occurred, and I had a mental breakdown within kind of 48 hours. I'd met up with an ex of mine from Ilford, oddly enough, and I was doing drugs as well, and all I could do as I was crying my eyes out with my ex-boyfriend, I could see all the slogans on the meeting, and I could see think, 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 one day at a time, live and let go. You know, all these slogans were going on, and I could see them in my mind's eye. I mean, I would probably say that was a spiritual awakening. That was a moment of clarity that God intervened when I could not do that for myself. And I said to this guy, I've got to go. I drove back out of my nut, driving my mum's car down the A406 back to Southgate. And somehow, some way, I managed to get myself to that meeting. And that person that had 12-stepped me the year before was at that meeting. And he just happened to say to me, I'm just about to open up a treatment centre in Bournemouth, and I really feel that you would benefit from it. And I said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. All my stuff was in the Middle East. All my clothes were there. Everything I possessed was there. I said, come and speak to my parents. And he came that night after the meeting and spoke to my parents. And my mum got on with him really well. And I think 3 weeks later, I was in that treatment centre in Bournemouth, and he picked me up from the station, and I've never picked up and had a drink from that moment that I got off that train and got to that treatment centre. And that, as I said, that was the 13th of September, 1996. And the miracle happened. You know, the miracle occurred with divine intervention. And I did the required 3 months there. I mean, there were only 3 of us at the time. And out of those 3 people, there was me, John and Jamie. And Jamie OD'd a couple of years later, and John is a serial relapser. And apart from that original group, there's only me that has remained from that first ever class of 96. And Angie, who's obviously on this group with us today, came in 3 weeks later, and hence why we are so rock solid. So the miracles work knowing that, you know, the message was carried through 12-step service and through telephone service. I got to this meeting and I ended up in Bournemouth. I met people that I would have never usually, you know, Angie's from Newcastle, her family are Irish, you know, my sponsor is different, you know, lifestyle, and somehow, some way, AA has woven its life and its fabric into my essence, into my soul, and it's proved to be the biggest asset, the biggest joy, the biggest miracle that I've received from just staying sober one day at a time. I mean, truly. I mean, Margot and Angie know that, you know, I couldn't have children. I was infertile for 10 years due to my bulimia. And, you know, I went and prayed, you know, desperately to fall pregnant. And I prayed and prayed. And, you know, 10 years later, whilst I was, you know, in recovery from the 96 to 2006, I eventually fell pregnant with identical twins. And these are just the joys of recovery. And, you know, and Angie, as I said, was my birthing partner and is the godmother to my children. And, you know, Margot's witnessed all those times that I was traumatized when I lost, you know, the first pregnancy. You know, I never thought that I would have kids again. And, you know, 3 months later, I fell pregnant again. And these are the miracles that have come to fruition. These were the promises, you know, the absolute promises. Fear of people and of economic insecurity have been my biggest gifts, because I suffer from high levels of anxiety that's got worse as I've stayed in recovery, you know, and I suffer with keeping myself so busy that I don't feel. And now as I'm getting older, I'm slowing down, and I'm embracing these emotions and I'm embracing these feelings. And the life that I've got today is beyond my wildest dreams. You know, I have sponsors. I've had a sponsor in my life consistently, that we've had opportunities to go on retreats together, 12-step workshops together, traditions workshops. You know, Angie and I have come up during lockdown, and the treatment centre that she works for, I've gone online and done shares for them in Newcastle, gone up to Newcastle when they've had, you know, mini conventions, and met Mossy in Lanzarote. And, you know, I think one of the if I was to drop down dead tomorrow, you know, my life today has been wondrous. It's been beyond my wildest dreams. And when I was 20 years sober, it was my mother's, I think that's the 75th, if I recall, and we went to New York, and I went to the World Service Office, and I went in there and I saw the library of every single language of the big book. And I just put my hand up to it and felt all these books, thinking these are going to go all over the world. I went into the World Service Office, where they still write by hand, where they get the letters from the prison inmates that are lifers, and they then allocate these letters to people all around America, and they become pen pals. And you think, oh my gosh, like, behind the scenes of AA is a wondrous world where there's a machine that's forever the cogs are turning. And it just, I'm in awe of what AA, you know, the principles and the traditions and the concepts signify. You know, it's become a beautiful, beautiful process that has given me so much more than I ever thought I would ever achieve. And, you know, during lockdown, around the 2020 period of time, obviously we all have gone online, and we've had the miracle of exploring meetings abroad in Australia, and, you know, like we're doing today. And what occurred for me was that I discovered something inside of me that when I came back into AA, that I missed something. Got to about 20 years of my sobriety now, and this is an old timers meeting, so maybe you can identify, maybe you can't. But I lost my mojo. Something had gone. I felt stagnant, and I felt like AA wasn't fitting the bill anymore. And I didn't know what to do. You know, I pursued obviously the online meetings because they were available, and I could make it a bit more exciting by traveling all over the world. And what happened was I heard that there was a massive spike of domestic violence during lockdown. And I'd already previously worked at women's refuges because I taught martial arts. I'm a self-defense instructor. I teach confidence building and self-esteem and assertiveness. And I contacted the women's refuges that I'd previously worked at and said, is there anything that I can do to help women in the refuge with AA? And they let me in. You know, if we first started having the online meetings, and then slowly, as the lockdown slowed down and it became soft lockdown, they would allow me in, and I would bring in literature. And I met up with our public information liaison officer, Rob, at the time. And it was like a drug deal. It was outside the treatment centre in Boscombe, and he opened up his boot. He took a meter back, and I grabbed the literature and took it into the women's refuge. And literally, it was like, you know, it was incredible. And from that, something happened. The miracle happened that my AA recovery was taken to another level. And about 3 years later, after the lockdown was completely over, I was nominated as PILO for Bournemouth District Intergroup. And for what we have done in Bournemouth, you know, we ordered a 3 metre by 3 metre gazebo. I've taken it to the Bournemouth Air Show. We were at Pride last week. I go to Asda's regularly and sit, you know, on a Saturday with my team, and we've managed to 12-step people from sitting at a train station in Bournemouth, you know, one of the Bournemouth ticket offices, and Asda, and so many other areas. And I did a workshop recently in Christchurch, and somebody came up to me and went, I know you. And I just looked at her, and I kind of vaguely remembered her. And she went, you carried the message to me at Pride last year, and I'm now 6 months sober. And it was like, whoa, you never know when the message is going to be carried. You just never know. And today I am just, the zest, the zeal, the life has been brought back into my heart and my soul from being of service to AA in a different way that I never realized was ever going to happen. And that's why we don't pick up no matter what. You just, you know, you put one foot in front of the other, accept the challenge that life can be difficult sometimes. You pick up the phone. I speak to my sponsor. I phone up Angie. You know, we talk for an hour at a time. I go up to her. She comes down to me. We meet in the middle. I speak to another peer. I see my sponsees, and you just work the program. You know, it's Unity Recovery Service, and you know, unity is the fellowship that is outside of the meetings. Recovery is the 12 steps, and service is carrying the message. It's the simplicity of what the triangle signifies. The circle represents the source of your own higher power, whether you want it to be the stars, the moon. You know, Margot and I were sitting there at Engusbury Head, which is one of the major points of a port, from an Iron Age port, a settlement. And as we came to from our meditation, I looked up at the sun, and there was a solar haze completely around the sun. And I just pointed it out to Margot, and I thought, well, if that's not a miracle that God wants us to see, this solar haze, you think, wow, God's got these signs that you just have to look up and see, and they're all there. Once you kind of put your head down, you're missing a trick. We look up, we raise our vibrations up, we create an energy field that is elevating the plane all the time. And you know, my energy is so high today, and I feel so gifted that you, and honored, Mossy, that you asked me to do this share today, and to be of service, and you too, Mossy, for doing what you do. You know, you're one of the foot soldiers, and it's people like you that make this fellowship what it is. It's really, truly those that don't need much accolade, you know, can be humble and not shout from the rooftops that they're, you know, Margaret and I were having this conversation. The beauty is in humility, you know, and less is more sometimes. And doing things behind the scenes, I'm all right with that. I don't need the accolade all the time. And I'm quite shy, I know, believe it or not. But oh, that must be a lie. If the sponsor's laughing, I'm obviously lying. But I mean, I think I'm shy, but maybe I'm a, what do they call it? Well, Andrew, you'll tell me. What is it? An introvert? What's the word? Extrovert, an introverted extrovert, one of them ones. But well, you know what? We're alcoholics, and when we were at the meeting earlier, it's about being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, isn't it? We can change our personalities to fit in wherever we want. And what I try to do today is be my authentic self. And to be my authentic self is to take risks, you know, to show my vulnerability, to expose my insecurities. That's my personal development. That's my growth. You know, and I was saying to my sponsor this, you know, catching up with my sponsees, I've had real difficulties with my sponsees this week because I've allowed outside issues get into my inside head, and their behaviors weren't aligned to my spiritual values. And I've had to let one of my sponsees go because it's inconducive to my spiritual well-being. And that's hurtful because it feels like a failure. But on a spiritual level, it feels the right thing, the kindest thing to do, to let them find their own way and to make their own mistakes on their own, because I don't want to pick up their pieces. They have to learn for themselves. You know, I could waffle on a lot longer, but, you know, for me today, I've worked the 12 steps, the traditions. We talk about working language of the heart, don't we? And going through the concepts. And, you know, our time will come when we get together where we will do a lot more. I have amazing people down in Bournemouth. I'm so blessed that we've got such a phenomenal fellowship down here. And it's just a real pleasure to be in an old timers meeting, and it's okay to be old today. I feel, you know, I came in at 26 and, you know, coming up to 56, it's a gift to be growing up in AA, and I feel safe to do that. And I think I'll leave it there. God bless.
Thank you, Suzi. It was lovely to hear you. It was lovely to meet you in Lanzarote. And I know I had someone with a bit of spark in their life when I met you. I love being sober. I absolutely love being sober. I love what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me and for my family. I'm just back from the World Convention and went to Akron afterwards. And this last week I celebrated 36 years in Dr. Bob's house. And it's just been amazing. And today I went to a funeral of a friend of mine. He was one of the first people to try 12-step me. And I spent 4 years going in and out and in and out. And in that time, every time I walked into the Lantern Bar, if Bernard was playing, he'd switch songs and he'd start singing Good Hearted Woman to Josie. And I knew he was getting a dig at me because I wasn't going to meetings. That's the whole purpose of it. And I stopped going to meetings then, and I'd end up drinking again. And I knew then AA didn't work. So I'd stop drinking on my own again. And Bernard and John DeLegge would come up to me and they'd be saying, how are you staying sober? Because we want to stop going to meetings as well. And what I wanted to do was tell them to get the hell out of my house. But I wasn't able to tell them to go. And I knew they were really having a go at me. But I was blessed that I got sober. When I got sober, came back the last time, I was blessed that I had a hunger for this. And that hunger grows daily. I don't get complacent. I get regular meetings. I stay in contact with a higher power that I do not understand. And my instruction manual is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I do service. And for me, doing service has made me feel a part of. I just love being sober. I'm looking around the screen, and of our members here, I've met Mick. Mick stays in my house. Regular. I know Kathleen very well. I met Carol, Nadia. I met John from there at the convention. Karen I've met a few times. Helen, Hannah, Tony, Catherine. I met Bob. If ever you're in Ilford, call up to Bob. He's well able to cook. Jeffrey. I think I've met Mel as well, and Dan. And I love being a part of. That's it for me, guys. I'm so grateful to be sitting here this evening. And thanks again, Suzi. And the grumpy one of the pair, Nick, take it away.
Right. Thank you, Mossy. And then all these people are still coming back, Mossy, after you've met them. Crikey. Susan, so I loved your story, and I liked it when you said about the triangle, because what I used to do was I in my triangle I got God, AA, and me, and God gives me the strength, AA gives me the guidance, and I do the work.
I think we need to ask Sue's sponsor if she was telling the truth or not.
Oh yeah.
So
there you go, Margot.
Margot, was she telling the truth? Let us know.
Which bit? Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing program, and it's been great working with her. And it works both ways, you know. She's kept me sober. That's how it's worked. And it was just odd because she was put in my life at the time when I really, really needed to, you know, I really needed help. And she doesn't realize, she thinks I've helped her, but she's helped me. And she doesn't realize that. So how much she has helped me. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure working with her. I mean, you know, it's amazing, you know, like as I said, we've both grown together, and AA is a marvelous fellowship. It's wonderful. And yeah, it's a super meeting. I've never done a Zoom meeting before, so this is a new experience, so be gentle with me. Thank you. Okay, you lot.
That's not what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear the truth about her. There you go. Thanks, Margot.
Over to Slim for the promises.
Hey all, my name's Slim and I am an alcoholic.
Hi, Slim.
And it ain't my fault, but it is my problem. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in their fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Their whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people, of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realise that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialise if we work for them.
And that's it, folks. That's the end of the meeting. I'd just like to thank Suzi, our speaker today, timekeeper, all who done the readings, screen sharing. And take it away there, Mick.
A reminder that we have a meeting on 7 days a week at 8:30 UK time. We also have a lunchtime meeting every Sunday at 1 PM UK time. This is a meditation meeting.
And stick around for fellowship after the meeting. If you want to use a breakout room after the meeting, just let me know. And the yellow card, who you see here?
What you hear here,
Where'd you leave here?
let it stay here.
And that we'll get Suzi to lead us out with this serenity prayer.
Yes, I've got a dog that's desperate to go walkies, so I'll be quick. Please join me in the serenity prayer using the word God as you choose to understand it, him or her. God.
God,
God grant us serenity, acceptance and change, courage to change things wisdom to know
Wisdom
keep coming back.
to know the
We're
difference.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.